Good morning, Mark Frederic. Le Charcuterie Anglais. How are you today? Straight away, you're probably asking, what's that he's got round his neck? Well, it's a scarf. And I'm just trying to keep my throat loose and warm. Those who've been watching my videos, you know I've been suffering for bloody weeks now with a irritating bloody cough. So, yeah, I know I look stupid with it indoors with the scarf, but some of you say, yeah, well, I look stupid even without the scarf. So, so you know, that's not an insult, because humour is always number one in my book, as you know. Anyway, let me crack on with today's video, as long as I'm not distracting you having this. Plus, I've got a lozenge in my mouth. I shouldn't be speaking to you with something in my mouth, should I? But before you get naughty, but, again, it's just a way to keep my voice loose and moving. So I was just going through my first book. So I'm not giving it a plug because you can't buy these anymore, or not new anyway. But they're a bit of a cult book these days, so you can find them secondhand in good condition. Anyway, my first book, I just happened to be going through it and come across Haslet, and I haven't made Haslet for yonks, and I quite like Haslet. I don't know why I don't make it more often. Maybe just because there's so many other things to eat. But anyway, yeah, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this very well, but there you are. I covered it, you know, in the book here from my first book, Le Charcuterie Anglais. But like I said, you can't buy these books now. But I was just going through it, and there's a couple of recipes, and of course, I'm a huge fan of offal. I love offal, you know, many forms. And it's probably why I like Haslet so much. And I thought, we don't see much of it these days. There's a few good butchers around UK who do make it and sell it. So, you know, thumbs up to you guys. Well done. I love it when you can still include a bit of tradition in your modern butchery enterprises. It's bloody great. So yeah, but anyway, it just brought me you know, to the point where I thought, yeah, I want to talk about Haslet, you know, because it's such a great product. So for some reason, and I don't know why, it mainly I better pull that tight, I think. I don't know why. It derives from Lincolnshire, or it seems to be associated to Lincolnshire. But I've just never known the connection as to why. But if anybody can tell me, please, you know, send in a message. I would love to know. But I don't want guesses. Just want factual information. So if you definitely know, send the information in if you wouldn't mind, please. You know, because I'd love to know. Anyway, Haslet, what is it? So it's essentially, it's a meatloaf. And when you look online for sources of information about Haslet, there's a lot of reference saying it comes from certain words within the French language, and it could have originated from France. And in particular, as it referred to spit roasted inners. Now, I like this theory. I think it's bloody excellent, because I would love to eat I would love to eat inners off a spit roast. In fact, I can even see it as a bit of a small business for somebody, you know, at showgrounds and things, just to do exactly that, behind a counter, spit roasting different inners. So you'd hearts on one steak, and kidneys on another, and liver on another, etc., etc. And that would be absolutely cool. A lot of people are against offal, but you know, I don't know why. It's a great nutrition source of nutrition. So anyway, yeah. So I like that theory. In fact, I'm really taken with that theory, and so of course then it's made its way from spit roasted inners over the centuries. It's made its way to be included more with fresh meat, pork. This is what Haslet is. So it's a meatloaf made up of fresh pork and certain inners, you know, the hearts, the liver, lungs even, you know, a little bit of that. So it can be like it could be like a faggot mix, but put into a larger form. But with a bit of emphasis on stale bread being one of the main ingredients, and then wrapped in coal fat. Now, when I make Haslet, I make it in about 3 different forms. I make it in small rounds, in those little ham cookers. I do that for small portions. I also do it in large oval terrines with a coal fat netting over the top, but tucked down the sides inside the terrine. And then I also do them in containers like loaf tins as well. So you get the elongated one, like a bread tin. And again, I like to use coal fat as the you know, final encasing. You know, it just looks more attractive, especially once you've got it out of the container. And, you know, because Haslet is very often served as a cold meat, a deli meat, and it's sliced ever so thinly, and you use it on biscuits, sandwiches, on top of freshly baked bread, etc. And it's absolutely delightful, especially you know, when you've got like sage in there. But the seasonings are normally quite simple, you know. In fact, it probably in the main would be just salt, pepper, and sage. But you can season up to whatever you like, whatever you prefer. So yeah, so that's what Haslet is. I've always wanted to make Haslet sausages, and I've never got around to it. And I've even thought of large diameter sausages. So once they're cooked, you know, they're you know, they can be sliced. You know, something from maybe, I don't know, maybe 44 millimeter diameter, something like that. I've always fancied doing that, but just over the years, just never got to it, never got round to it. I get all these ideas running around my head at times, and that's what I've wanted to do with Haslet, in order that you can put it out in different forms. And even if you do have like a very thin slice of something about 44 millimeter, that's going to look quite attractive as well on certain like, you know, sliced baguette. You know, the two sizes complement each other, you know. So especially if you cut your baguette at an angle, so you've got just a little bit more bread sticking out. And of course it's making that link because you got bread inside the mix, stale bread. Using up, you know, that's what you're doing. You're effectively using up yesterday's bread, or the day before even, in the recipe. So you know, way of using that up. So yeah, so that's what Haslet is, and it's not really known outside of UK, which is a real shame. Like I said, I put it in my, you know, in my first book, Le Charcuterie Anglais. That was back in 2010. So because I'm into tradition, and Haslet is a very traditional product, cold meat product. So and when I saw it today, I smiled to myself, and I thought, oh yeah, I haven't had Haslet for a long time, and I ought to play around again with it and do one or two things. And I've had Haslet. I've bought Haslet. In fact, I've bought quite a bit of Haslet off other butchers and producers. And I have to be fair, I've always had good Haslet. I can't recall ever having a bad Haslet anywhere. you know. So you know, I think maybe for all the producers that I've bought from, you know, they've all, you know, relatively stuck to tradition and got the recipe bang on, and they've not been afraid to include large amounts of offal in the mix, you know, which is, you know, for me is great because I love offal. So it's up to you when you make your haslet, if you do make it, and I hope you will. I hope we'll give it a try. And if offal is not your favourite meat for whatever reason, or you're a bit unsure, you can go heavier on the pork mix and lighter on the offal until you get your own groove, and you know, to what you like, and then bang, save that recipe and continue to make haslet. I haven't got much else to say other than I'm drooling. It's not just a lozenge making this, but I'm drooling at the thought of the old French offal on spits, rotating, cooking, and I'm being served up. That's so much me, that is. just that, maybe a bit of bread. Oh, anyway, I'm not going to get that here, but there's no harm in thinking about it. Look, if you like the video, drop down, buy me a coffee, please. Much appreciated. Costs go towards making these videos, and I've got other fundraising as well that I put it towards. So yeah, please. Catch you later, the next video. Hopefully I've got rid of this stupid bloody scarf by then. Toodaloo.